"Oh, just how fast are you, Coach?" He says, "Well, let me tell you." He says, "I live down the Palmer House, and my bed is on one side of the room, and 10 feet across the room is a light switch. He says, when I turn that light off to go to bed at night, I'm in bed covered up by the time it goes out." So. I guess that's fast. Our last speaker to honor Mr. Barnard is the son of the other honored guest, who was requested the privilege of saying something on behalf of Mr. Barnard. Eric Winslow.
Say a couple things. It strikes me that two people who had a lot to do with my life are being honored in the same evening. Some of my brothers have more straightforward stories to tell about Mr. Barnard. But one of the things that strikes me is that from the time I was small, people would say, "Wait until you meet Mr. Barnard." And it's sort of like meeting Santa Claus. You're never sure whether you want to or not. But, I guess I came along at a time when Mr. Barnard had decided to become the elder scholar of the town, because my relationship with him is one of real admiration. I feel that he's been a strong force in my pursuit of education. I do want to say one thing. I found some things out about Mr. Barnard, and I've kept them secret for a number of years. I found in high school that it was true that the chemistry class made sulfur dioxide on the first day of fishing season. It was true in the assembly hall that the rubber band and paperclip phenomena was partially supported by the rubber bands and paper clips that had been taken away from many of us by Mr. Barnard and resold through Sullivan's. I'm concerned about that, but a teacher did not get paid well in patent. I didn't know about the peanut ventures. I often wondered, though, whatever happened to all the chewing gum and candy bars that were taken from many of us. I will report back to you again on my findings on that. But I really would like to say thank you, Mr. Barnard, and this goes for a number of people, I'm sure, from my group, my generation. Thank you much. The idea of leadership in education is frequently we do not see. The steady hand, a person who was able to go through the changes in education that started in 1928 and came to the days when you retired, had to be a tremendous leader. And thank you much for your efforts.
There are some sons here tonight that I think are very proud of their mother. I think we also have a mother that is proud of some sons, too. We have a group of, we're going to speak about Regina before they use up all the material. I would like to recount some of my experiences. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. I mean, our offices for 25 years or more have been mine at the bottom of the steps and hers at the top of the steps. And back a few years, I was interested in and active in politics. And for a short period, as long as the regulars would tolerate it, I was district chairman. And I put in some innovations that I thought were very good organizationally. But believe me, she gave me a postgraduate course in political organizations. Her her office was the meekest office you ever saw in your life. I mean, the halls of Congress didn't have any more meetings than she had. Every night, there'd be Republicans traded. There'd be organization, skinny Republicans, fat Republicans, young Republicans, old Republicans, farmer Republicans. Every night a meeting. And you should have heard the things that went on up there, but there was stomping and marching, and they hear these battle cries. Tonight the first war, tomorrow the world, and they come storming out of there. If you had Regina Winslow in every community, the Republican Party wouldn't be worried about its future, I can tell you. I was conscientious about my duties, and I would try to get down to the polls, the first thing. And the first thing I would see was Regina pulling up with a full load of nuns from the convent. And this is the convent was the roof that the more Democrats were under than any place. And I would look at her and sort of puzzled. She says, "Oh, that's all right, Bob." She says, "Mine are all in. I was going to help you with yours." This is like the devil helping the pastor to convert somebody. Or she'd say, "I do it in the name of democracy." That was a small D that she was doing. I'll say a little bit more later. The first speaker I would like to say a little bit about too, Albert Oliska. He's my oldest friend in Patton. I met Ab when we were both in basic training. No, I was in basic training. He was in the office. He was a clerk. There were three things that I've always remembered about Ab as a soldier. Number one, he was always dressed up. Number two, he always had a briefcase under his arm. And number three, he was always first in the chow line. As much as things change, they still remain the same in many respects. Ab's great contribution to the war effort was at the end of his basic training when he took his fatigue uniform up to the supply sergeant. He said, "Sergeant, would you give this to some soldier who could use it?" That's enough, Ab. Would you speak a few words to us? Okay. I had reserved a part in the later part of the program for this, but before she leaves, I would like the folk singer who entertained you during the meal. She's Tamara Stasic from Asheville, and I believe this is her first public appearance, and I hope that you will all show your appreciation for her efforts and talents.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, Dr. Shields mentioned the fact that this town is honoring two Republicans. And here's what I found in front of me, an elephant. So I have to get pretty active on these committees because the next time we're going to have one Republican, one Democrat. As far as Bob's concerned, he's right. I did meet him in the Army. And I was all dressed up, and he was out there with dirty fatigues, and I says, that's where I met him in 1942. I says, just keep it up, Bob, that's the way I got my start. As far as lawyers are concerned, I can't help but bring this out. It's a very short story. It seems that St. Peter and the devil had an agreement to keep the gates of hell in good shape. But St. Peter came down one day to the devil, and he said, devil, he said, you're not keeping up your bargain. He said, we've got to do something about this. He said, what can you do about it? Well, he said, I have to get a lawyer. He said, where in the name of hell are you going to find a lawyer? As far as, I've been asked to come up here and speak for Regina Winslow. And I could have found this task very much more simple and easier to say some nice things about Mr. Barnard. But since I'm assigned to Mrs. Winslow, I have to talk about her. I first met Mrs. Winslow about 29 years ago. I mean, I've knew her all my life, but when I came with the borough as borough secretary, our association became very close because she was then a justice of the peace. And I must say, a very good one, unlike some of the ones we have today under this new system. Mrs. Winslow was a good justice of the peace, so she fined a lot of people, she gave a lot of advice, she got a lot of people jobs, she did a lot of things for people on her own time, many times. And many times I would go up to the office and I would have to wait because someone was there, she was having a hearing or doing something, and I would have to wait. And there were some interesting things. It would take a year to tell them all. I'm only going to tell a couple. I was there one day, and a man came in and he says, would you initiate the first papers for me to change my name? And she says, okay. So she got the papers out, and she says, what's your name? He says, my name is John Lipschitz. So she looked at him, and she says, so I started, she says, what do you want to change it to? He says, Joe Lipschitz. And she gave out justice in many ways. There was a man came in one day, and he said, he was arrested for stealing some lumber up the lumber mill. So she fined him $10 in costs, and she says, you're a Catholic? He said, that's right. He says, you have one more thing I'm going to add to this. You go to confession right away. This is Saturday, go down and go to confession. So he did. He went down, he went to confession, told the priest, he says, Father, I don't know how to go to confession. I never go to confession, but this is an order. He says, what'd you do? Why, he stole some lumber, and he said, I had to pay a fine. He says, well, for that you make a novena. He said, you get the lumber and I'll make it. And she was very good at giving advice. I was sitting there one day and a lady came in and she said, Mrs. Winslow, she says, I'm having troubles. She says, my man, he just stays in these beer joints. He won't come home. When he does, he's loaded, and I don't know what to do about it. She says, well, did you ever stop to think that maybe you could do something about it? She said, what do you mean? She said, why don't you give him some environment home like he gets in the barroom? She says, I'll try that. She says, have some beer ready for him, some whiskey, maybe you can wean him out of the barroom into home. So months later, while she talked to the lady, how'd you make out? Oh, she said, I don't know, it's good or bad. She said, he came home loaded as usual, and she said, would you like a shot of whiskey? Oh, he said, wonderful. How about a glass of beer? She says, yeah, I'll go for that, he said. She says, how about a kiss? He said, might as well, I'm going to get hell and go home anyway. Mrs. Winslow doesn't forget her friends, sometimes for political reasons, sometimes just because they're friends. Now, she wouldn't bother me for political reasons because I'm a Democrat and a good one, and she's a Republican and a good one. But I was in the hospital recently, and she sent me a card. And I knew she wasn't looking for a vote. But here's a very simple card. It's nice. It says, to get better, you have to give up drinking temporarily. Well, that didn't sound too good. And it says, that's long enough. Get well, love Virginia. Well, that wasn't bad. But here's what else she put on it, though. Now, she didn't know if I was laying down or dying or just laying around. She says, Dear Abby, I hope you are well on the road to recovery by now. If not, I know a friendly undertaker in the family. I get this. Who will lower you down? Lower his fees dirt cheap. This offer expires in 2025. I'll take you up on that. Now, when it comes to politics, we got along very well. Like I said, she was a Republican, I was a Democrat, and we mind our own business. We got along very well. And they say that politics makes strange bed buddies. But that never happened in our case. But it almost did, though. It almost did. We had a meeting in Harrisburg with Dr. Goddard. 3 carloads left Patton. It was snowing, blowing. It was terrible. And we didn't make it. We got stranded. So somehow we got into the Union Press carrier. Albert Holiska and Mrs. Winslow are stranded in a snowstorm on their way to Harrisburg. So someone asked me in the street one day, where was Mr. Winslow? Unfortunately, he was stranded with us. So, all in all, I feel very proud to take part in honoring these 2 people. They've done very, very well for the people of Patton. They've been good citizens. And all I can say is I hope both are around for a long while, still active in the Chamber of Commerce and things, and God bless you both. Thank you.
Yeah, who said you can't be nice? Our next speaker is probably not too well known to you in this area. But as you know, Regina is Mrs. Republican. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Republican, Mr. Robert Gleason, the county chairman.
I'll just talk a little bit. But, the one thing stood out as far as everything I know about Regina was, she was a great Republican when it came to a national election, always out in front. She was a great Republican when it came to state elections or county elections. But let anything happen up around Patton, it wouldn't be a word from her. People used to come to me and say, what's the matter with Regina? What's going on up there? The nice thing about it is this, that she gave everything for her community. That was her thinking. For a long time, a lot of people couldn't figure that out. Why Regina wouldn't be active in Republican politics for local office. But later on, we found out, and I think that is one of the outstanding characteristics of Regina. She was always all the way for Patton, be it Republican or Democrat. And though she may be Miss Republican in the county, as she is, up around Patton, she was missed everything. She is a great girl. Thank you.
If that were a motion, Mr. Gleason, I'm sure there are a lot of seconds to it. The next speaker, I think, is very familiar to you. He was, for a long time, the chief administrative assistant to Congressman John Saylor, and he ran for that office on a number of occasions. And I know that Gene was very much interested in furthering his political career. I know that she's very happy now that he's the president of the Board of Commissioners of Armstrong County, Mr. Harry Fox.
Chairman, Mr. Barnard, my good friend Regina, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I come from a small community of Rural Valley, which is not very far from where Mr. Barnard was raised, and I just found that out tonight. I don't know him as well as I do Regina. But from what I've been hearing here tonight, he must have been a grand man, and I'm certainly pleased to be on this platform to help honor you. Most of us here tonight, I think, are here for one particular reason, matter of curiosity. When I was extended the invitation to be here this evening, I just said, well, I don't care what I'm doing on Saturday night. I said, I'm going to go up there to Regina's testimonial because I know she's been asking me for quite a number of years. And I've known her. She said, when are they going to recognize me? It finally came, Regina. But I pulled into the gasoline station down here this evening and asked them where this meeting was to be, and it said, he said the American Legion. I said, yeah, no, but point me on the right way. And so he said, what are you going all dressed up for? Where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going up to a testimonial affair for Regina Winslow. This man says, oh, her. He said, I wouldn't go to that affair. He said, she's not worth eating with the hogs. Well, I was really dumbfounded. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know she is. I could never understand, really, why Regina would be given this greatest honor here tonight by her community, because there have been quite a number of big names throughout this country that have never been received a dinner like this. Well, you know them. King Kong, for instance, who tried to scale the Empire State Building, and, of course, in the midst of an elevator strike. They never had a dinner for him. Or, as Noah's wife said, after 40 days and 40 nights, she told her husband, she said, it's your turn to mop up the floors. They never had a testimonial dinner for him. And, of course, Eve, who said to Adam, what do you mean the kids don't look like you? He never got a dinner. So, and of course George Washington, since we're talking about Republican jokes here tonight, who said to his father, if I never tell a lie, I'll never be president. They never had a dinner for him. So, Regina, I am really proud to be here to see that you're recognized by your community in this manner. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that you do yourselves honor by honoring her in this manner. I'm not finished, Bob. He's over here looking for the watch. But seriously, she has given generously to those in need. Perhaps more, according to what she had. She did not envy the rich, but she helped the poor to become richer. She admired the strong and assisted the weak to make them stronger. She always wanted to lift people up, never to pull them down. And her only weakness was that she had a hard time saying no. And as the aide to the late Congressman Saylor for over 25 years, I know, she used to call repeatedly, telling me about the problems that she had with people in this community. And she shared their concerns with loving and tenderness. Never did I hear her turn anyone away. And I don't think that this is particularly a weakness to say, not to say no. It's no sin. She's a deeply religious woman and has not given God simply lip service, but has played the game of life according to God's rules, which I think is very commendable. And she's always loved people. But I think that there's no finer adoration, as I have observed over the many years, is with this wonderful family. Mother to children, and children to mother. They are a completely devoted and loyal unit. And I think that's a fine tribute in proper upbringing and the affection which they hold together. And to have and to hold this kind of love forever is certainly something that I am envious of, and I'm sure many of you. Her counsel and advice have always been good. And somewhat belatedly, Regina, I am greatly honored to share in your friendship and that of your family for these many years. And I'd like to offer this toast to you especially, and also to Mr. Barnard. That may you have enough trials to keep you strong, enough sorrow to keep you human, enough hope to keep you happy, enough failure to keep you humble, and enough friends to give you comfort, enough faith and courage in yourself and your family to banish depression, enough wealth to meet your needs, and enough determination to make each day a better day than yesterday. Thank you very much.
Here, you need something.
All I can say, it's tough being down on the list. The next speaker, I think, can handle the situation. A longtime friend of Gene's, and friend of must be a lot of people. He elected so many times as a Republican in this county. Gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome and to introduce to you the President of the Kemper County Board of Commissioners, T.T. Minster.
Reverend clergy, honored guests, and wonderful people of Patton and other surrounding parts of Cambria County and Armstrong County. I am really confused. And somebody called me and asked me to speak for a few minutes. I didn't know that this was a roast and toast affair. And I, too, like Harry Fox, wrote a speech that I had hoped would bring tears to your eyes. And then I got in here, and I listened to my good friend Bob, and I thought I wrote the wrong speech. And here it is, I ripped it up. That's the speech I wrote. I started out with a roast and toast speech. And then the next speaker was Dr. Shields. And we just listened to Mr. Fox and all the others. And I'm not quite sure whether I'm supposed to make you laugh or cry. And I got a hold of Regina. I sent her notes. We were writing notes back and forth. And I said, what kind of stories can I tell? How can I roast you? She said, well, tell about some of those great experiences I had when I was a magistrate or a JP. So I remember some of the stories she told me. She told me that in Patton, which has a great reputation, one time 3 girls infiltrated from Pittsburgh, and they started a house of negotiable virtues. The police of Patton were up to the task, and they arrested those 3. And they would appear the next day, along with another arrest they had made. They made an arrest of a fella, a little fella, that was peddling without a license in Patton. So, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people, we call them magistrates, we used to, and JPs. But many people, when they appeared before them, they called them judge. So the first girl that appeared before Regina, when she stepped forward, Regina said, young lady, what do you do for a living? And she said, Judge, I'm a seamstress. And she said, we don't like liars in Patton, and you are going to be fined $100 and 10 days in jail. And the next girl stepped up, and Regina said, young lady, what do you do for a living? And she said, Judge, I'm a beautician.
And she said, we don't like liars. That will be $100 fine.